Frustratingly, injuries are part of a running journey, but we always aim to minimise them. It's unlikely that you're going to fully be able to avoid them, but I tell you what, you can definitely increase the risk of injury. And the way I see it, there are 6 main faults or big problems that I think runners have when it comes to dealing with injuries, and they are a step-by-step process. Some of them are to deal with before, some of them are to deal with after. And I'm going to take you through them. Let's take this injury, or near injury by the way I want to say, just as an example. When this flared up 4 weeks ago, I was absolutely convinced there was no warning signs, that I could not have seen this coming, but after a conversation with a friend just a couple of days ago, they spoke about they had something similar and they told me their warning signs, which I just didn't even know, so I've even learned some new warning signs right now. But there are steps in the process before we even get to warning signs, and that's what I want to start with. Okay, let's talk about the first big problem that we all go through as a runner, and I'm pretty sure most of us do, and that is making strength and conditioning happen. Because what we often do is we do it after we've got injured as a matter of priority, which is reactive. What we don't do is before the injury, which is proactive. So it makes a case of rehab instead of prehab. And I get it, by the way, as runners, what's the thing that we want to do? It's run. What's the thing that we don't want to do? It's probably the strength and conditioning and mobility work. And I know there are some people out there that can make it happen, but we find it hard. So we've come up with some strategies to make sure it happens even when we don't want to do it, because we know how important it is. And the first thing we do to make this kind of stuff happen, by the way, I'm not sure I'm going to get down here, is that we factor in 10 minutes in the morning as soon as we've woken up to have this mobility drill happen. So we'll either get up 10 minutes earlier than we ordinarily would do, or if we've got nothing on, like it's the weekend, then we'll just get up and the first thing that we do in the day is a mobility routine. And it's 10 minutes, it's nothing, but it's done. Also, we pick routines that we know are like the back of our hands. We don't have to think about them. So rather than following a different YouTube video each time we want to do a strength and conditioning workout when we're at home, or going to the gym and trying different things, what we do is we have 2 or 3 like routines that we know: single leg workout, posterior chain workout, and then we can do them without having to activate almost our brain. It's easier, and we pick things that last like 20-25 minutes, nothing long. And finally, everything has a place. So during marathon training season, probably we're doing more stuff at home workouts, and then when we're outside of marathon training season, we're getting to the gym, we're doing heavier weights, we're building our strength. So outside of the season, strength; inside of the training cycle, maintenance. That's the way that we work, and it's the way I always feel like I really don't want to have to go to the gym all of the time when I'm in my marathon training cycle. So I do a lot of stuff at home, and then that makes it just makes it more doable. I will just ask though, are you subscribed yet? Because come on, we're giving you value here. Once we've decided prehab is the way, it's time for us to double down, and we'll make a few suggestions here based on our experiences and your circumstances. You see, every year or two we'll go through the process of getting some testing done. Sadly, it did first start in 2019 after I got injured, and I went and had a run analysis to try and figure out what went wrong. It probably cost the same as a good pair of shoes, but it is so worth it. It turned out my left hand position was causing me to over-rotate, putting pressure on my right hip, causing injury. But that run analysis fixed me, and I was sold. And because we don't often look at our own running, we don't always know what might be leading us down the path to injury. So we've had a run analysis a couple more times without being injured, almost as a tune-up and a check to avoid injury, to make sure we're heading in a safe direction. And obviously, if you're a runner that doesn't pick up many or any injuries, it might be less of a priority for you, but either way, it is a great reassurance. And then we've had other types of analysis, like last year we went and had strength and muscle balance tests to see if we've got a weakness in certain areas that could also cause an injury. And it turned out our hamstrings, like a lot of runners, are much weaker proportionately than our quads. So again, we were given a plan to fix that. We've tested our lactate thresholds as well. Dialing in our training zones is another great way of avoiding injury by knowing how hard we should be training in each session and ensuring we push at the right time and hold back at the right time. Overall, Getting ahead of issues by testing and analysis and knowing yourself and your running gives the confidence you need to keep training, knowing that you're heading in the right direction.
Of the 6 points I'm going to make, I'm going to argue that this is the biggest problem for all of us, and it's that we either ignore the warning signs and push through and then get ourselves injured, or we just don't know the warning signs, which is pretty relevant for me right now. Let's talk about ignore first, because ignore is easy. If you have pain and you keep on running, you're probably asking for trouble. Unless you go and see someone, of course, and they tell you that this is a kind of thing that you can work through with a little bit of strength and conditioning and a little bit of treatment, which I've done. I've gone to see someone for just reassurance, and they said the back injury is okay. If you do these exercises, you can train through it, but that's rare. So a very simplified way of understanding what signs are is, if you have tightness in an area, that's a sign. It's stage one. If you do something about it, it probably never kind of moves to the next level. The next level is kind of the stiffness turns to soreness and discomfort. That is the one where if you do not stop, if you keep going doing what you're doing and don't seek treatment, you are likely going to go into the next stage, which is of course injury. But here's the most frustrating bit, and that's not knowing what the signs are, even when you think you know what the signs are. Let me explain. This has just happened to me. So 3 weeks ago, I was out running, no pain, no nothing, no tightness, nothing in the lead up as far as I was aware. Woke up the next morning after my long run, 4 weeks out from Berlin, Achilles tendonitis flare up. Like, it literally felt like I'd broken my ankle. And it was only a couple of days ago I learned a new sign that I had no idea was a sign. So it turned out, walking down the stairs and walking up the stairs, I had like this pain-free pop in the back of my ankle. It was completely pain-free, didn't think of anything of it. That apparently is one of the first signs of Achilles tendinopathy. You learn something new. If I'd have known it, I probably would have dialed my training back. I guess ultimately the message here is you should not train through pain without doing anything about it. Whether you can then continue training if someone says you can, or whether you have to stop, that's a different matter, but you're rarely going to get anywhere just trying to blunt force your way through this. So learn the signs of what injury is, learn how to negotiate that. Can you train? Do you have to dial it back? Do you have to do strength training? And then you get the golden goose of running, which is consistency. It's staying in the game, and that's what's going to get you the furthest anyway, not just trying to smash your way through some kind of pain in some kind of session.
One big problem many runners have is not knowing how to deal with different types of injuries when they do get injured. A good example is the Achilles tendonitis that Ben has needs to be treated really differently to a torn muscle that somebody else might be experiencing. So with tendonitis, for example, with Ben, some stretching and mobility work can be a good thing and can really help. But if you've got a torn muscle, you don't want to stretch that out and cause further damage. So you really need to know what the right procedures are for the injury you're dealing with.
And take, for example, icing an area when you're injured. It does have some benefit for pain relief, and in the early days, maybe 1 to 3 days after an injury, it kind of reduces swelling, but swelling's what the body needs to repair. It's how we get new fluids into the area, it takes waste product away. So doing that for any longer than 3 days, we're actually stopping our ability to heal quickly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the wrong type of recovery for the wrong injury is actually going to set you back rather than speed the process up. Tendonitis, meniscal tears, ligament tears, muscle damage, they're all kind of different recovery procedures. And sometimes, believe it or not, rest is not the best recipe for recovery from an injury. You just need to really look into your particular injury and then how to recover from that, not a cut and paste one size fits all jobby.
One of the bigger problems with dealing with injuries once they've happened is knowing where the actual issue is. Because, Mary, point to your calf muscle. That sometimes, if that's the injury area, as in the weakest muscle that gives way, is not necessarily the area that's the problem. Mary, point to your glutes. Could be there. Mary, point to your hamstrings.
could be there. You see, on the we don't really know how we're making this point, by the way. We're just going for it. The fact is that your body is a kinetic chain, as in all muscles and ligaments and tendons are interconnected. So if Mary had a tight hip, that could lead to an injury in her ankle or Achilles. Because, Mary, you're going to need to point in a few different places. Tight hip could cause tight glute, could cause tight hamstring, could cause tight calf and inflame the Achilles tendon. That's what the kinetic chain is. So often when we get injured, as in a calf gives way and maybe you hurt a muscle in the calf, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the problem. It does mean that you need to strengthen that area because it's the area that gave way, but what it actually means is somewhere in your body there is either a muscle imbalance or a tightness or a weakness that is causing an issue over the entire kinetic chain. How do we fix it?
So now what we need to do is, once you've found the area that's the weak spot, you need to work on strengthening that and building that area up, not just the area where you're experiencing tightness or pain or injury. So understanding that the area where you're experiencing the injury isn't necessarily the root cause is really important in being able to treat that root cause and avoid further problems down the line. If you're just strengthening and treating the area of the injury, you might fix that in the short term, but it's likely that with the weak area in another spot, something could flare up again in the future.
And that, my friends, is the kinetic chain. I don't know if we explained that very well at all, but we thought that might work. But I suppose understanding is the key. And then analysis, testing, strengthen, which we've already done, but we do it again. Always.
And finally, a tremendous problem for people that run, and notice how I just worded that instead of runners, is that they may quit when they get injured. They might just think, oh, I got injured, maybe running isn't for me. But let me reassure you that injury is an unfortunate part of pushing your body to newer places, running faster, running further. And you can mitigate the risk by doing all of the things that we have spoken about. But ultimately, sometimes it's unavoidable. And here's what you do. 2 things. That's 4. Sorry, I just realized that. 2 things is, first of all, you identify yourself as a runner, not someone that runs. Someone that runs might drop out of running. A runner will do whatever it takes to get back to running, even if it's not running. They will injury manage. They will go and find and speak to people that might be able to help them. Physiotherapy, run analysis, strength testing. And the second thing is, they'll find a way. They'll cross-train. So you may have seen in previous training cycles, when I trained for New York, when I trained for Boston, I went onto the elliptical. I figured out a really good pattern for myself for Chicago, where I cycled twice a week in place of an additional run. And in this training cycle, just towards the end when the Achilles tendonitis flared up, I cross-trained. I got on the bike and put the miles in, because I will do whatever it takes to be standing on that start line feeling fresh, recovered, and ready. And you might not have a start line, that's not the point. The point is you do what it takes, because a big problem for people who run rather than runners is that they may just quit when it's not going well for them. And that is not an option for me. I'm in it for life, like I'm sure that most of you that are watching are in it for life. So that is how you pivot.
That's enough for now. I really hope that added value to your life, and if it did, then consider subscribing, but never a hard sell. And also, you're going to get a lot more value with this video, which is the big problem with running slow to get fast, where I explain the concepts and sessions that underpin truly getting faster as a runner. See you next week.